Good morning from Teacher Melissa. It's a rainy Sunday morning here, and I'm getting ready to head out to church in a little bit. So I thought I'd pop in and make a quick tip video to hopefully help you out in many different levels of VIPKid. I've got lots of slides to show you. I've got lots of notes to go over, so I'm going to dive right in. Today I want to talk about teaching kids the correct sentence frames to compare things. We often see this in our VIPKid slides. We might see a Venn diagram, or it could be just a discussion slide and say, how are these two things different? Or how are these similar? So we'll see it in many different ways. I'm going to show you quite a few different slides showing that. But it's not usually until the upper levels that the proper sentence frame is taught. And I think we're kind of doing a disservice. So I start throwing it in as soon as my kids start getting a Venn diagram or a question that asks them to compare or contrast something. So I'm going to throw up a few slides and just talk about them as I go. For instance, okay, here's one where they had to read two stories about New Zealand. New Zealand native, good day, New Zealand. And so they had to compare and contrast the two. I always write both and draw the little line to wherever the both would go, like in a Venn diagram or in a chart. So I usually let them answer first, and then if they say both, great. But usually what they say is all. They all are about New Zealand. And great, yes, that's right, they are. Now, Coco, in America, and I'm usually pulling out my whiteboard, and I'll say, in America, when we say all, we're talking about more than, greater than two things. Is there more than two stories? No, there's only two stories. So if there is two stories, we don't say all, we say both. Both stories are about New Zealand. Have a try. Okay, so I'll explain it like this the first time. I might write it on my whiteboard. I might not. Depends on the skill level of my student, right? So I'm just going to write on there both and give them the sentence frame. Now, sometimes I'm typing this in the chat box if I feel the student needs to see it, okay? And if I do this, I am always mentioning it in the feedback to the parents. Teacher Melissa extended the lesson by teaching Coco to use the word both when comparing two stories. And then I copy and paste that little blurb down to the learning partner on the bottom. I want them to know that I am doing a little bit of an extension and teaching them a new sentence frame. Okay, great marketing for me, right? Okay, so they often will say all. So listen for that. So I always correct. It's not all, it's both. There's only two. Now, if there's three or more, it's all three of these, all 10 of these animals, whatever. But if it's not three or more, we usually say both instead of all, okay? Now, here's the second thing I find that they often do when they're doing different. They say and when they're contrasting the two. So if they're saying the story New Zealand native is fiction and the story Good Day New Zealand is nonfiction, or whatever they're going to say. One's got characters, one doesn't, whatever. One's real, not real, however they're doing it. They often say and technically that's incorrect and not what we teach in American schools. There is a contrasting word, and when they get to fanboys and the conjunctions later, but is to add an opposing viewpoint. This is one thing, but this is something different. So I will also write but on the screen and give them that sentence structure. And my advanced students might say, and as if they are the same. Should I use and? Sometimes they just come up with it on their own, but I'm always writing it, but, okay? I'm kind of a stickler for this, and it has proved amazing results. Okay, this isn't just in language arts. Here's a math lesson. They were comparing numbers, even numbers, odd numbers. So even numbers end in 0, 2, 4, etc., but odd numbers end in this. So comparing numbers, if they're different, we still use but. Now, here's a slide where there was no Venn diagram, no chart. It's just a discussion question. Okay, look at these two birds. How are they different? So it's just a sentence, but I still want them to think about anytime it says different, they should use the word but. Okay, this bird is colorful, but this bird is not. I'm not at this point a whole lot worried about the content because we've already discussed it in class. It's New Zealand. They're learning about the kiwi bird. So, but anyway, I just want to add that extra in, how they are different. Here was a discussion question about the Earth and the Moon in a space one. The Earth is this, but the Moon is this. The Earth has life, but the Moon does not. The Earth has plants, but the Moon does not. Okay, however, the Earth is big, but the Moon is small. However they want to do that, but I'm writing but on the screen. Okay, so there's lots of ways we can do this. Now, this is in my more basic classes, my little bit lower, I'm talking 3, maybe level 4 and 5 even. But once we get up to my more advanced students, or if they've been with me a while, I will start telling them different words that they can use. Okay, so I will tell a student, however, and I'm writing that on the screen, I'm typing in the chat box. You know, we can say however here too. We can say but. The earth has plants, but the moon does not. I can say however. The earth has plants, however, the moon does not. So I'll teach them some new words, some new sentence frames to say that. And they really enjoy that. And trust me, parents and learning partners really enjoy that too when I brag about it. So I'm giving them some different contrasting and some different similarities. And when you get into the upper levels, they do start teaching that. And I really point it out. Like this one was comparing Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, I think. And it is showing them that there are words, clue words they can look for. So most of my students, by the time they get to this, they've had me for a little while. They already know most of these words. But if they're new to me or they don't remember, I'm actually circling again, both, also, alike. These are other words that I can teach them beyond this slide when we're comparing, okay? The earth and the moon are alike because they are round. Okay, so I'm going to teach them some of these new words because they're going to get them later. But if I've got a student I think can handle it, I'm going to tell them ahead of time, long before they ever get to these upper level slides. And you can see I do this a lot. The blue writing is the students here. Yes, my students know. At this point, they've had me go through this a few times. If they get any kind of Venn diagram pops up, they're starting to write both or but on the slide. Or if I write both, they're writing but underneath for the difference. They did it even with a picture. This boy knew. I've done it with him so many times on Venn diagrams and so many other different things. It was just 2 pictures. How are these pictures different? And he just wrote, no prompting from me whatsoever, wrote but on the screen because he knew I expected him to use that word. This is a city, but this is the countryside, whatever. And Mark the athlete, here's another one. The student just automatically wrote it on there because they're used to that instruction. And they like to brag that they remember my instruction. And I applaud this a lot when they just start volunteering the knowledge of how to accurately compare and contrast 2 things. So try these extensions out. Tell me what you think. Have you ever tried these before? Do you have any other ways that you do it in your class? Now, again, I don't do this with my level 2s or trials or anything like that. I'm doing this with some of my little bit upper level students, and I just increase as I go. And try this on your students and see how it goes. And don't forget to brag about it to your parents and to the learning partner in that feedback. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to click my picture below to subscribe so that you're notified of new content when it becomes available.